All right, welcome to today's news. Not at all the pedophile report, not the moral mania hour, or whatever the hell we're calling it, and not at all half-assed. It's not like we just put together this show at the last second and just now logged on. We put a lot of work into this, a lot of preparation. Hope you had a good weekend, Michael. How are you?
I'm good. I don't know. I'm shocked. I've been contemplating how to structure this show for what seems like days.
We've been having a long
putting a solid 8 hours per day of prep work.
That's right. And it's going to show in the execution of the program, which is going to be flawless on.
I mean,
in
a sense, that's true though, because what am I doing on a given day? Procrastinating and not writing usually. Forcing myself to write for like 2 hours, ideally. But beyond that, just absorbing things going on in the world, maybe gathering some fun clips and storing that in my sort of mental deposit that is then helpful when we have to come on in front of the good people out there watching and listening. And I don't know, so I guess you could call it work or prep in a way, like it's just life.
It's work, and look, it turns out to be a good thing. So we're gonna look, a lot of weird stuff happen, as is always the case with America and weekends now, although nothing like axis altering happened this weekend, which is a little unusual. But there was stuff. But we're gonna start with across the pond with our good friends in the UK, who had a nice juicy debate on the floor of the House of Commons today. Today, right?
Yeah, it was today. This is not the ordinary weekly Prime Minister's questions, which is on Wednesday. I think this was an emergency sort of ad hoc session that was called specifically so Keir Starmer could address an escalation in the controversy around his appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the United States, which has already been dogging him for many months now. But a new layer to it was added when I believe it was The Guardian reported last week that Mandelson had failed to pass an internal security vetting process.
And Peter Mandelson, by the way, he's a lord, right? He's got some exalted title. He's a kingmaker in British politics. Again, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I think there are calls to strip him of his honorific. But anyway, so the extra dimension to the controversy that burst onto the scene last week was that the civil service within the UK government, having it's some department within the foreign ministry, I believe, conducted a security check on Mandelson's background and found that he failed the check. And we don't know what criteria was employed or on what grounds he even supposedly failed this check. But this is supposed to be supremely controversial and scandalous because Keir Starmer claims he wasn't told that Mandelson failed this check.
Yeah, and
I mean, it's a very quintessential British scandal, actually. It's kind of like very procedural and very sort of in the weeds, having to do with the propriety of some kind of obscure internal
the UKSV.
The UK, yeah, exactly. I don't even know, like, what is that?
The United Kingdom
security vetting thing,
service. I guess. I guess there should be another S on there, but they didn't complete their check. Starmer kind of lied about it, or sort of did, or something.
Well, we don't know. He claims he wasn't told. He claims there was a procedure in place where he would be informed about his potential appointees clearing the security check or not, and he claims that he wasn't told by whomever was supposed to inform him of the finding, and then he fired or sacked, to use the British parlance, that individual last week. And it's all coming to a head. His government is very unpopular anyway, as I'm sure you know, and there has been lots of speculation that his continuation of in the prime ministership is no longer tenable, blah, 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 blah. So, there are a bunch of people calling for him to resign today at this impromptu meeting of Parliament. But, for all the fixation on the procedural minutia here, there's one reason only that this is even a controversy, right? It's because Mandelson is seen to have been tied to Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein was the world's most notorious pedophile. Okay, it's not just some flaw in the security clearance vetting process in some like department of a department that nobody's ever heard of. It's all to do with the taint that is now just engulfing Starmer by virtue of his appointment of Mandelson, and also Starmer like validating the criticism by, constantly apologizing as to what a horrible decision this was and how it re-victimized the victims and blah blah blah.
Let's roll the first tape, because this is just classic. It's meta stupid, and we'll get to all the metas. But it's basically an excuse for a whole big crowd of people to yell pedophile at Keir Starmer, and for Starmer to take it because he's British. I don't know. Let's watch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I'd like to provide the House with information that I now have about the appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to the United States. But, Mr. Speaker, before I go into the details, I want to be very clear with this House that while this statement will focus on the process surrounding Peter Mandelson's vetting and appointment, at the heart of this, there is also a judgment I made that was wrong. I should not have appointed Peter Mandelson. I take responsibility for that decision, and I apologise again to the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, who were clearly failed by my decision. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so...
Okay, wait, no, there's more. Let's get to the other. There's another one that's worse.
There's a bunch more, but can I just interject for a moment?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is going to be overlooked by everybody who consumes this, probably in any sector of the media or even in the general public. But in what sense was any of these purported victims, quote, failed by the appointment of Mandelson? Like, what harm was done to them? How are they inconvenienced or mistreated, or how are they inflicted with any misfortune whatsoever by way of an ambassadorial appointment by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, whom they would never have even known about? And it's just like one of these assertions that gets made, and everybody's like expected, as I wrote in the tweet, to kind of like nod in solemn, sullen affirmation of it. And like nobody has to ever spell out like what the freaking logic is, because it just makes zero sense. It's just like one of these. It's just one of these like ritual incantations you have to make. It's
political Mad Libs. It's something, the survivors, something, whatever, respect, pedophile, you suck. And all right, so here's
pizza, grape soda,
pedophile, blah blah blah, liar. So I don't understand this procedural moment. If somebody from the UK can explain it to me, or maybe Michael, you can. Let's watch this. This was kind of amusing.
Zara Sultan.
Speaker, in September, the Prime Minister stood at this dispatch box and told the House he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson, a man whose relationship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein was public knowledge. The Prime Minister knew and backs him anyway. Now he claims he had no idea that this twice-fired government minister had failed MI6 vetting, despite journalists putting that directly to Downing Street that very same month. Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Prime Minister appointed Mandelson because he owes his job to him. He appointed him, he defended him, and now he claims to know nothing. He is gaslighting the nation. So let's call this out for what it is. The Prime Minister is a barefaced liar, and if he had any decency left...
Order, sit and leave. Leave now.
Leave.
I'll name you otherwise. I'd go now if I were you. Leave. I'm not. Leave. I've now named. I've given the option to leave. I'd leave if I were you very quickly. Move before I read it and give me one option. Right, give me that. You have no duties. It's my duty to carry out and control this house. One chance. Do you want to leave now or not? Right. I named Zara Sultana. Minister, I beg to move that the name the said member be suspended from the House. Mr. Speaker, call Jane Kitchen. Jane Kitchen.
I beg to move that Zara Sultana be suspended from the service of the House.
The question is that Zara Sultana be named and leave this House. All those in favour? Aye. Leave. I'm sorry you've done this. I really am. Right.
So is that making a false statement?
No, okay. So procedurally, naming is the formal declaration by the speaker, where on his discretion he can determine that a member of parliament is out of order. And one way in which a member of parliament can be out of order is using unparliamentary language, such as like personally impugning a colleague. So you can't actually accuse somebody of lying directly, or you can't say you're a liar, or so you can obviously allude to it or hint at it. But if you directly allege it, then you're violating parliamentary codes of conduct, and you're named, meaning you're kind of formally reprimanded, and then you are expelled from the day's proceedings. So you have to physically leave the House. In terms of what this is like essentially how a typical prime minister's questions session transpires, which is that the prime minister makes a statement, the leader of the opposition responds, and then the speaker calls on everyone technically, but the speaker, after the kind of customary prime minister and then the opposition rebuttal, he will determine who to call on from, the government party, the opposition party, and other parties. So that's what's going on here. People who want to stand up and make a statement or ask a question, they submit their request to the speaker, and he chooses.
If you call the speaker a knob, you can be thrown off the floor. Is that the idea?
Yes. More often than not, they're calling the prime minister a knob.
I'm sorry,
or a wanker,
yes.
or a
right, yes,
or
yeah.
Some kind of other funny
We've
little
run
slur,
out
because they don't
of
want to
British
insult the
slurs.
speaker, right? Because if they insult the speaker, that means that the speaker probably won't call on them again.
Right, exactly.
And he's the one with the gavel, right? And he controls the parliamentary proceedings.
Okay, and
interestingly, so the woman who stood up and made a big stink, Zara Sultana, it's sort of interesting that she did this, right? Because she was a former Labor Party member, but she's in like the rough equivalent of what would be the squad in the Labor Party, as in the squad in the Democratic Party in the U.S. But she was kind of like, I think she even, she self-declares as like a democratic socialist along those lines. Obviously, the Labor Party itself used to be formerly a socialist party, but she was in the more activist inclined sort of youthful socialist contingent. She recently has been in a controversy with Jeremy Corbyn, who got expelled from the Labor Party as well, despite having been the former leader of the Labor Party. But one thing that Keir Starmer did when he won the leadership in 2020 was pledge that he was going to purge any trace of the anti-Semitism that Jeremy Corbyn was supposedly allowing to run rampant in the party. So he got thrown out, and he's been an independent, but he tried to form a new party called Your Party, with basically co-founding it with that Zara Sultana. And then, as was like painfully predictable, they end up having like a hardcore internal dispute over something that Zara Sultana seems to have instigated against Corbyn, and the whole thing was just a disaster. But so she's coming at this from, like, I guess, the anti-labor left, and interestingly enough, it's cross-ideological, like is also often the case with Epstein clamor, in that it comes from every direction, right? Yep. It's a full-blown ideological synergy, so such that you can't predict what ideological orientation any given person will be if they have like a especially histrionic take on it. So this next guy, this is Robert Jenrick. He ran for the Conservative Party leadership. He ran the Conservative Party leadership race against Kemi Badenoch, who's a black woman who won, and she's now the leader of the opposition.
And by the way, she also threw out convicted pedophile over.
Oh, did she? I didn't watch the whole thing. But this is sort of interesting because Jenrick just defected from the Conservative Party and joined Reform, Nigel Farage's party. Because he thought that was maybe, because reform has been, it basically has supplanted, or nearly almost in most instances supplanted, the Conservative Party in the opinion polling, and they're performing better than the Conservatives in like local elections or by-elections. So Jenrick kind of calculated that would be a better platform for him to continue his aspirations, because it was a pretty close race with Kemi. But like he sounds, aside from this little preface that he gives where he's like complaining about some immigration stuff, you would never know that he's coming at it from a right-wing angle, and you would also never really know that Zara Zoltano's coming in from a left-wing angle, aside from some of the rhetorical flourishes like you're gaslighting and so forth. I guess that's maybe a little bit more of a left-wing sort of rhetorical twist. But anyway.
Yeah. I feel like I know that this guy worked in Moscow at one point.
Did he?
Yeah, he was at Skadden Arps, I think. A little bit after I left, but I think you can tell he's coming from the right. Just there's a peculiar kind of dickishness that comes through.
Yeah, that's right.
That's different from the other kind.
And look in the top right, you can see Corbyn slumped over.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like he's now a literal backbencher.
That's pretty funny, and the origin of the term too, right?
Yeah.
Let's listen in.
Robert Jenrick.
The Prime Minister's aides brief that he's furious, angry Starmer. But why is it that he only ever seems to get angry when he's trying to save his own skin? Yes. Is he not angry about the 600 men who crossed the English Channel on small boats on Saturday? Is he not angry about the people who are queuing up for fuel at the forecourts and can't afford the Chancellor's taxes? Isn't the truth that his government is now so paralysed that its only agenda is cleaning up the mess left by the paedophile pal, Peter Mandelson?
I think any minister of any government that hadn't been provided with this relevant information would rightly be frustrated and angry.
Emily Darlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to take a moment during the statement to focus on the young women who were exploited, abused, raped by Jeffrey Epstein and his friends.
Wait,
years of being trafficked for rape.
Okay, well, then let's keep going for a second. I'm sorry.
Rape, no one to turn to, and years of people not believing them. The idea that Mandelson would call Epstein's conviction wrongful is disgusting. And I cannot imagine how it felt for the survivors to hear that. The PM was right to sack him. So can I ask the Prime Minister to take the opportunity again to say to those young women that this House believes them and this government stands by them? And is he confident that no person with financial or personal links with sex traffickers would receive DV in the future?
Can I thank her? And she's right to focus on the victims in this, and that's why I started this statement
the biggest
by making it clear that this was a judgment error on my part, and the apology I have made is to the victims, because I know the impact that this will have had on them, who have already suffered so very much.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, first of all, this whole thing about the victims who have been raped and trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein, has he ever been charged with rape? And has he ever been charged? Has there ever been anyone who's been who's claimed to have been trafficked and raped by other men?
Well, Virginia Roberts Giuffre claimed
right,
it,
yes,
and that's enough for them, because
that's enough for them.
There's another clip where she's cited as the saintly figure, basically the modern Joan of Arc. But go back to what don't literally bring it up, but as to what Jenrick said. His claim is that the government of the United Kingdom is paralyzed. It's in a state of paralysis by virtue of a all-consuming pedophile crisis. So according to him, the only thing the government can do is clean up the mess that Mandelson and his pedo pals have left behind.
His pedo pals.
Yeah, so there's a fraternity of pedo pals who are just busy cleaning up their mess, and they can't attend to the affairs of state, which is just an amazing statement, right? Because, like, okay, in terms of what actually took place in the UK, it's all Virginia Roberts Giuffre. I mean, she's the one who introduced the claims against Prince Andrew, right, and led effectively to Prince Andrew also
And
having
she
been.
How old was she at that point?
She, at the time that she claims, she was trafficked, or she was, a sex slave who was directed to satisfy Prince Andrew. It would have been in March of 2001 when she was approximately 17 and a half years old, which would have been above the legal age of consent in England. Okay. So, and that's really the only UK specific claim that people are aware of. Now there's a handful of other stuff that, like, maybe if somebody's really in the weeds, or like they're like a maniac like me, where they could like cite chapter and verse on so much of the stuff. But I don't, so like, one of the alleged victims in the Maxwell trial claims that she had met Epstein initially by way of Maxwell in London when she was approximately 17 as well, which also would have been above the legal age of consent. That's Ganushka de Gorgiou. And there's also like talk of some kind of renewed investigation around Epstein's private plane trips to various airports in the UK. And we have to go back and now scour through the passenger logs to check who some of these unidentified females are, to see if they're trafficking victims from Eastern Europe or something. But there's never been anything that could be even reasonably construed as a pedophile allegation as it relates to the UK. But they just take that for granted. They, and also,
and they also leave out the fact that, well, let's look at the last clip with St. Virginia, because this whole thing hangs on one person whose account, let's say, is not exactly without issues.
I'll say it a little bit more bluntly, whose account no sane person could take at face value unless they're
whose account her own publisher
unless they're trying to, unless like they're saying, but they're also trying to just promulgate a totally blinkered narrative. But like any sort of, let's say, I'll revise, any person who would dispassionately evaluate the evidence could not seriously claim that the account is remotely credible. But of course, that news doesn't penetrate any of these people. I shouldn't maybe use the verb penetrate in this context. But like that's not something that they're going to be conscious of. They're just kind of, again, just absorbing snippets and mythos.
Yeah. So Virginia Giuffre, or how do we say Giuffre?
I say Giuffre.
Giuffre, yeah, because there's a nickname, something
VRG.
VRG. All of the issues with her testimony and accounts have been washed away.
Confabulations.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that her book Nobody's Girl, it's not clear whether it's fiction or not.
The publisher claimed to me that it was nonfiction.
Okay.
Even though
there are other drafts.
It was based on an admittedly fictionalized earlier draft.
Right.
Which maybe they weren't aware of. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they did a whole lot of due diligence.
All right, let's roll this tape.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Prime Minister for his statement, and I thank him even more for the apologies on the appointment of Peter Mandelson and being here today. I want to commit the words once again to the record of Virginia Giuffre. I think they are particularly relevant to Peter Mandelson. She said, "Don't be fooled by those in Epstein's circle who say they didn't know what Epstein was doing. Anyone who spent a significant amount of time with him saw him touching girls that you wouldn't want a creepy old man touching your daughter. They can say they did not know he was raping children, but they were not blind." Now on the House, across the House, there is consensus that we need to get to the bottom of this. I absolutely accept that the Prime Minister did not know about the security vetting. But can the Prime Minister please update the House on when we can have the next tranche of documents from the humble address so that we can get to the bottom of who did know what and when?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for her campaigning on behalf of these victims and many other victims in relation to abuse, sexual abuse in particular, and her insistence always that we must put the victims first. We are complying with the humble address as quickly as possible, and we will comply with it fully.
So in the UK, they have their own mini Epstein files.
Yeah.
Saga going on, which are the files.
I love how Britain has a small version of everything that we have.
They have a smaller, sadder version. They have like a limp version where we're flaccid with our Epstein files. Well, no, sorry, we're rock hard with our Epstein files.
Tumescent.
Yes. But basically, though, what she's referring to there is like the next tranche of documents that they can expect, having to do with the internal memoranda and emails and so forth around the appointment of Mandelson, and just various documents related to that appointment. So it's kind of limited. I think they are. So I think it may be a little bit broader than that, actually. But like the first tranche that came out had only really to do with Mandelson, and they weren't that illuminating. I mean, I read them. I guess they're like mildly interesting. It's always just like mildly interesting to see how this internal stuff works, but there was nothing hugely revelatory.
Well, the only revelatory thing is the one thing they don't bring up, which is the tip about the bailout, the UK bailout, right?
But that came from the US files, though, didn't it?
Right, that came from the US files, yeah. Right. I'm just saying that they seem obsessed with some vague allegation about Mandelson and pedophilia, even though, of course, Mandelson is gay. There's no allegation that he had anything whatsoever to do with that. And there isn't even a concrete allegation, a real allegation that he knew. And there isn't any allegation of actual sex with children that he would have known about. There's just this
same with virtually anybody who's accused of having not known or having they're denounced for having associated with Epstein, but not done something about his presumed continued predation of children, or like there's really no grounds to think that any of these people, whatever the extent of their association with him, say post 2008 when Epstein was convicted, or when he entered his guilty plea, that they ought to have somehow known that there was something, there was like illicit conduct going on sexually with children, because there's no claim really ever that there's no credible claim that's ever been made really that post Epstein's conviction in 2008, he had any sort of contact whatsoever sexually with anybody under the age of 18. But again, that's not something that's ever been publicized to the degree that any of these members of parliament would be aware of it.
No, people keep asking this of me, and this person must have known this. No,
known what?
They would have known the same thing that people know, for instance, about Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots right now, that this person had a charge for solicitation, and there was some stuff behind it. But they wouldn't have known about all these other allegations that were suppressed as part of the non-prosecution agreement. And they wouldn't have been able to evaluate them the same way that we aren't able to right now. Right.
I mean, depending precisely what year you're talking about. So I don't know, let's say 2010. If you wanted to do a true deep dive, you could have found some of the early civil litigation that made allegations about that related to other conduct. But I don't know, like in order to associate with somebody or have a friendly kind of relationship with somebody, do you do a full-fledged LexisNexis search on them and like look through every possible?
I do. Everybody whoever comes within a mile of my home, I do a full.
I mean, one thing that's so annoying about this, and one way that the morality of this is so skewed, or like the claim morality, is that like, well, yes, it's true that if you or I or anyone had legitimate grounds to believe that somebody that we knew or associated with was actually an active predatory threat to children, then it would be incumbent on us to take some kind of corrective action.
Especially if you have children.
Well, even if you don't, I mean, if you're just like a sane person, right? Like that's something that anybody would intervene in. But there was no grounds for anybody to suppose that when they're being denounced for not having done something. So we have this now inverted morality where like something is kind of retrofitted onto them, and now they're moral monsters. And it's really got nothing to do with protecting children at all, because there were no children who could have otherwise been protected had they done something.
Yeah. So this one drives me nuts. There was a period in the U.S. where the term convicted sex trafficker was in vogue in every major newspaper, and that's not correct either. I mean, he was arrested and charged with trafficking, but he was never convicted of it. Ghislaine was, but convicted pedophile is, that's a bridge beyond, and that's
not even a criminal. There's no statute whereby somebody could be convicted of pedophilia. Right? Pedophilia is a pathology, right? It's something that you not to get too deep in the weeds on this, because although I should say there's nothing more I love than having fraught discussions of pedophilia on the internet.
Right.
But you can be a pedophile. You can be somebody who qualifies for the clinical definition of a pedophile, and you're a pedophile because you have pathological thoughts or fantasies or attraction to prepubescent children. You could be a pedophile but not act on it, right?
Mhm.
But you can't be convicted of that in a court of law. You can't be convicted because of your foul thoughts. So when somebody gets convicted, let's say somebody does commit a genuinely pedophilic offense against a 5-year-old or something, they're not going to be like the charge is not going to include the word pedophilia. So, I mean, maybe that's a little bit of a nitpicky type way, nitpick, but like it's just not something like convicted pedophile is just not something under 6. Convicted sex offender, okay. Convicted maybe a child sex criminal, possibly, but no, not convicted pedophile. But that's just used now as the shorthand,
right? But I mean,
and also, but people also the first thing that that I wrote that you cross published on Racket was on this very question: was Jeffrey Epstein a convicted pedophile? That was back in December of last year. So if people are interested in the full,
and that was great, and we took a lot of shit for it. But you're right, and look, you're right. There's no term in the criminal code in the United States that has the word pedophilia in it. It would be something like endangering the welfare of a child or criminal sexual conduct with a minor or something like that, right? But still, when you say convicted pedophile, that certainly implies a conviction with a charge that involves sex with children, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing like that here, and we have members of parliament saying it over and over and over again from both from both.
Well, I mean, what's
left and
ironic
right.
is if they were to if you were to argue that you can rightly call Jeffrey Epstein a convicted pedophile, then you would have to go to the 2008 entry guilty plea by Epstein in Florida.
Jeffrey Epstein treats objects like women, man.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay.
That's Lebowski. Go ahead.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I mean, let's see that's something where I know some of the major catchphrases about Lebowski, but it's not something I can call to mind as readily as you. I admire however your brain is wired.
Well, that's because only the unimportant stuff is at the front. But anyway, go ahead.
But so we have the 2008 conviction, where in the state of Florida, you could call him a convicted pedophile if you're defining pedophile as any sexual contact with anybody below the age of 18, right? So it was the 17-year-old who was the one minor victim who was cited in that guilty plea. But if you're going to call it that in England, then you're calling somebody a convicted pedophile for sexual activity with someone whom would be considered
under 16.
No, who would be considered a non-minor in England.
Right. Yes, I know, but what they mean is what's the term over there? It's hang on. Sexual activity with a child under 18, rape or assault of a child. They use the word child appears in all these offenses, right? But that's not what's going on with this case.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's Again,
I
I
know.
I was on LBC, like the London radio network, and I was naive because I thought that maybe they had seen some of like the relatively decent commentary on me that had been coming out in certain precincts, but it ended up being, just what I ought to have expected was just me getting battered over the head with the same old pedophile interrogation, pedophilia definitional interrogation, and so I had to just litigate this for the 10 millionth time, but they said they're even more flippant about it in the UK media, where because I cited to him, there was like some little iteration of the Mandelson story that had come out the day before. And in like an ITV report, it just, blithely referred to Epstein as a convicted pedophile. And it's just not correct, but it's stated over and over again. I think even more commonly there than here, because maybe they're not even they're even less attuned to the underlying facts and evidence. Well, and who's going to challenge it, right?
Yeah, right. So that's the thing. The penalties for lying in England are much higher in media, but when there's no plaintiff,
he's been deceased for 6.5 years.
Right. So it almost seems like these kinds of generalized untruths, they're much looser with them even than we are here, and we've gotten terrible about it.
Yeah.
And really just in the last couple of years, it's really become a thing where we just routinely say stuff that isn't correct.
Because I think you actually successfully shamed a handful of people in the media around their casual use of the term convicted sex trafficker, right?
Right. Yeah. A couple of them retracted. Yeah. And they were nice about it. But in a lot of cases, that's because they're looking at another news story that uses the term.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just ubiquitous in the UK.
Right. And what I think this is the thing that people don't know about how fact checking works is that in many cases, there's a list of publications where if they use a term or a fact, then you can say, okay, we assume that's checked, right? So once one newspaper does it, once one television,
it's common knowledge, right?
Yeah, it becomes common property. It becomes the mistake. All right, so I have a sort of pop cultural question. How much does Keir Starmer resemble Michael Gambon in the Ali G respect scene? Can we see that?
I'm just going to fake knowledge of what it is that you're referring to and agree.
You haven't seen this scene?
I remember watching Ali G, almost under duress.
This is the movie.
Okay.
Because this government's conduct of economic policy has not only been incompetent, it has been unscrupulous, untrustworthy, and untruthful.
There is this in our posse. I was going to sort this.
And look at this.
The brain ends adolescence.
I'm not sure, Prime Minister.
And for you, sir, to come down and step up to me and have the...
Relax, Yabati. Look at you. All you ever do all day long is cuss each other. RESTECP.
PEDOFPH.
You even know what that spells? Respectpa? Yes. Respectpa. How's anyone out there meant to respectpa each other?
Respectpa. But he's totally Michael Gambon, I think. Keir Starmer. He's just more nasal, and he's just such a pussy. I'm sorry to use that term, but he gets up there and all he does is is apologize for things he didn't really do.
He's like the polar opposite of Donald Trump, right? Trump
Right,
will never
exactly.
apologize about anything, even stuff he actually did do.
Right. Yeah.
He'll bulldoze right over any allegation or any demand. Like he wouldn't apologize to the Pope last week.
right, exactly. Although that was kind of funny. I have to.
No, I know. I mean, it is funny, but that's just his thing. Never apologize. That's one of the core tenets of the art of the deal mentality.
The art of the deal. Yeah.
But with Starmer and some of these more like left of center squish men, especially, their mantra is just like constantly apologize. Which, of course, the apologizing never satisfies anyone. So they're shooting themselves in the foot. Like, is anybody satisfied now because Mandelson had been arrested? Like suppose you would think people would have been satisfied when Mandelson was arrested for some kind of cooked up, unrelated infraction that they invented under this catch-all statute, right? For just like public misconduct. Same with Andrew, but that didn't satisfy anyone. It just inflamed the issue even further.
I mean,
and going back to what you said, they don't care about the information that was allegedly passed by Mandelson having to do with the 2008 bailout. I think that does get mentioned. I don't know. I can't recall exactly if it was mentioned here, or today. I think it probably was. So it's not like they're totally ignoring it.
No, but I mean,
I don't know. But I just question because, that Gordon Brown was the prime minister then. Mandelson was serving in a government position under Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown has come out recently and declared that Epstein is the biggest political scandal in modern British history, which he'll, I guess, use as one of the pegs to that, as the allegedly insider information that was passed. But it's got to do more. Like he has sketched out this whole grandiose trafficking theory and like Britain's complicity in it when they have to do a forensic reexamination of how they enforce trafficking laws and blah 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 blah. And like he even did like a private investigation himself of like the airport schedules and calendars and the flight logs and so on. So I don't know. I just feel like what's been. I know there was an email that came out that appeared to show him giving some kind of indication that something was going to be happening with the bailout, but like, do we even know enough about what happened there to say that it was this?
No, but I mean,
obviously damning thing.
My only point is that actually,
or that Epstein ever acted on. Like, did Epstein like get a big payday because of that? I don't think that he ever did.
No, there's no allegation that I know of that he went out and front ran the information somewhere. Yeah. And but the point is, all the communications involving Epstein and Mandelson, apart from the picture of Mandelson and his tighty whities, which I don't think means anything, the one email that looks like it would be in a clear avenue for investigation would be that, right? You certainly don't want a high-ranking official giving advanced information about a major financial decision by your country's government. Like, that's not a good thing, especially to a financial professional. Right. I mean, that's the kind of thing that could cause major havoc in the markets. And it's, if that's indeed what was going on, that probably was illegal. But instead, we've got this sort of crazy Alice's Restaurant conspiracy theory where everybody's harping on things that are demonstrably not true, about people who clearly could not have been implicated in sex crimes, about trafficking that didn't happen, about rapes that didn't happen,
about harm that couldn't have possibly happened by way of the appointment of Mandelson. Like, name me the Epstein victim, quote unquote, who endured additional harm by virtue of that appointment. I mean, it's just an absurdity. But in terms of the potential insider information, I mean, the suggestion was that when Mandelson was arrested, he was arrested for an offense having to do with that. So there's some investigation of it underway.
Yeah, there's an
But
investigation
was,
of it.
I mean, my predisposition toward both of those investigations of Andrew and Mandelson, barring further information, is that they were essentially pretextual, meaning that they were clearly instigated by this larger Alice's Restaurant or Alice in Wonderland fervor around the pedo stuff, which is what people really care about. But they could nail them on something that was kind of fueled from it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about British law to say one way or another that email constituted some kind of illegality.
Yeah. So I haven't seen enough people talking about the charge misconduct in public office, which is it's the kind of law that freaks me out in general. It's like the Espionage Act. It's one of these things where they can just throw it at you, and you're basically guilty, no matter what happens. Misconduct, it's very vague. So let me look at the wording here. Misconduct in public office is a common law offense that can be tried only on indictment. It carries blah blah blah. Let's see. All right.
It's also not even clear that Prince Andrew
willfully neglects to perform their duty and/or willfully misconducts themselves. What does that mean? To such a degree as to
themselves.
Willfully misconducts themselves to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust in the office holder without reasonable excuse or definition.
That could be like throwing a water balloon, or I don't know. Like that can mean anything,
right?
It's also
thank
not
God
even clear
we
that
don't have a
Prince
law like that,
Yeah, it's a catch-all. It's whatever
Right.
the prosecutor wants it to mean, given the political circumstances.
And
Also, it's not even clear that Prince Andrew held a public office in the way that would have been contemplated when that law was structured.
Well, no, but he does have.
He had an informal trade envoy
right.
role,
Yeah.
but that wasn't a public office. I mean, it's just unclear whether that would constitute a public office. But the lack of clarity, of course, was no impediment, because what were they doing? They were satisfying this public clamor for some kind of quote accountability.
Okay, so at Spacey 118 wants to know, Michael, if you like the Epstein class. I'm assuming he's talking about you.
I don't know. That's not even phrased in the form of a question. It just seems like a statement. So I'll let it stand. You're right. I agree.
Okay.
I like it.
You like it? You like the Epstein class?
I like it. I love it. I want more of it.
All right. So while that was going on, while that madness was going on in Britain, and knowing the British, they'll make they haven't finished making the mountain out of that molehill yet.
No,
so
absolutely not.
there's a ways to go, and this is a country that has a good history with mountains, right? I mean, they a lot of famous mountain climbers.
Well, we have King Charles is coming to the U.S. soon. And there have been calls, for like a state visit with Trump. And there have been calls for him to make some sort of statement once he gets here about Epstein or about his brother. And I think it's, it seems more likely than not that he'll probably end up doing it.
All right. I'm going to really enjoy the, although I guess it's Trump, so it makes a little bit of sense, but having a member of the royal family lecture the United States on sexual morality will be awful.
No, I don't think he'll lecture anybody. I think he'll do another one of these endless apologies, or he'll make like a statement of support for the victims or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Like Ro Khanna's been saying, if King Charles is going to come here, he better address the Epstein survivors.
Oh my God. I used to like Ro Khanna a fair amount. I thought he was a really smart guy. What's your take on? I mean, I guess he's just committed to this thing now.
Yeah, he's committed to the bit. I mean, same with Massey. I used to like Massey as well.
Yeah,
Massey was somebody who had a unusual, intricate knowledge of like legislative procedure, where he would know what's going on in the Rules Committee, which he served on, where like most members of the House don't even know what goes on in the Rules Committee, but he could like explain to the public, and Mike Johnson's doing some kind of chicanery, and he would report it out and whatnot. And he did go against the grain. Like he's somebody who's independent minded. You could, at the very least,
absolutely.
But both he and
Ro
Khanna, and similar to Ro Khanna, yeah. I mean, among the people in Congress who I would have any degree of respect for whatsoever, they would have been among that small group. But they both rode this algorithmic wave of Epstein starting last summer when they sensed an opening politically, and they sensed like potentially a vulnerability in the Trump coalition. It was just an untapped potential for them. And, Massey in particular, he was, falling out with Trump, and he had to come up with basically a unique donor base for his primary in Kentucky because Trump was gearing up to support a primary challenge against Massey. So he can't go to like the donor class of the Republican Party, which, in a way you could say reflects well on him. But it was just like, once they dove headfirst into this thing, they just kept, diving deeper and deeper and deeper to the point that you almost can't reason with them anymore. And, Ro Khanna thinks he's, I guess, going to be running for president with an Epstein class stump speech, meaning purge the Epstein class. You could see him like rehearsing this stump speech as he goes on now. And, maybe even Massey will run if he manages to ward off a primary challenge. So,
I mean, I know a lot of people who almost worship the guy at this point. And
Massey,
yeah. And I understand what he is independent minded, but when you come out at the beginning of a scandal and you say like, we're not going to be satisfied until there are people perp walked out of this thing, like for what? Like you're announcing that you're going to punish before you have the crime.
As a supposedly due process minded and civil liberties and championing libertarian,
yeah, exactly.
And I still can't get over that the two of them maligned and slandered a bunch of just random men in New York City, including an auto mechanic, an IT manager, as implicated in child sex crimes, and then never even apologized for it. Like,
wait, when was this one?
What's that?
When was this one?
This was early February, so right after the big release of the Epstein files, January 30th. What were they doing? Of course, they were scouring for anything that was the most incendiary or which they could use to claim that the cover-up was continuing, right? So they found this one document that they didn't stop for a second to like get any context for what they were looking at, but they saw maybe some genuinely superfluous redactions. And so they were going to say, look, we'll get these unredacted. We're going to go to the DOJ and get them unredacted. They get a partial unredaction by the DOJ. And then both Massey and Rose start going around saying, look what the DOJ was covering up. They were covering up these perpetrators. Ro Khanna went to the floor of the House and gave a floor speech saying, look at these powerful men that we uncovered who the DOJ was trying to cover up for some grave offense. And it turned out to be guys who had nothing whatsoever to do with Epstein, who were just kind of like incidentally included in, because they were in some kind of a police lineup on an unrelated case. But so Massey said, they were giving a press conference in front of the DOJ building. Massey says that,
here we go.
Those men are likely incriminated. What's that?
Can we read? Sorry.
Yeah.
Michael, can you read the lead on that?
And Jacqueline Sweet, who I know, did a really good job on this. Ro Khanna, a California Democratic representative, read a list of 6 names on the House floor earlier this week and said they were, quote, wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid in the recently released files related to Jeffrey Epstein. After questions from The Guardian, the Department of Justice said that 4 of the men Khanna named had no apparent connection to Epstein whatsoever, but rather appeared in a photo lineup assembled by the Southern District of New York.
Okay. So when The Guardian is checking you, you know it's bad, right?
Well, Jacqueline Sweet is independent.
Right.
She contributes to The Guardian. But yeah, I mean, because it was unimpeachable what she came up with. So The Guardian had to run it. But Massey went even further. Prior to that floor speech from Ro Khanna, I don't remember if she mentions it here, but he said that these men were likely incriminated. That was a quote in monumental child sex crimes. So they didn't bother to do 2 seconds of like contextualization to understand what document they were looking at. They just immediately fired off the most inflammatory, renderings of it. And they continue to like blame they blame anybody but themselves. They can blame the DOJ. They blame anyone but them for being so reckless in firing off these defamations. They haven't even had the decency to apologize. And
Kana posted on X that I wish the DOJ had provided that explanation earlier instead of redacting them and then unredacting their names. They have failed to protect survivors, created confusion for innocent men, and have protected rich and powerful abusers. Like, are you kidding me? Come on. Like, it's their fault? And then, okay, here's at R-worded1.
No, I mean, if you're a member of Congress and you're making these, scandalizing public statements that impugn private individuals in some of the most heinous, crimes that anybody can ever be alleged of committing, then it's your responsibility to do like the bare minimum due diligence to check what it is that you're saying. But they don't think that they're obliged to do that. They could just blame the DOJ. And look, I mean, the redaction protocol was a mess, so I'm not denying that. But there's also, the responsibility for your statements lies with you.
Just because they put it out doesn't obligate you to stand in front of a microphone and accuse them of stuff. And this is exactly, if you asked, I mean, there aren't that many left, but if you asked any real civil liberties lawyers, what's a danger in this Epstein files case? It's people standing on the floor of the House, leveling accusations at innocent people, which is something we saw in the 50s with the HUAC hearings, because they have the
I have in my hand a list of 60. McCarthy would always change the number of people who were supposedly communist infiltrators. So it'd be like 60, 65, or then, it would depend on how drunk he was that day.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was 201, and then it ended up being we talked about this, but
Wheeling, West Virginia.
Wheeling, West Virginia. That's right, the big speech that he gave.
But how about Massey? I mean, how is it consistent with any notion of civil libertarianism for Massey to have just presupposed the guilt of people that he's and calling for the arrest of people while saying he doesn't have the evidence, but the evidence has been hidden, and that's part of the whole cover up. And like, we can only ever be satisfied, right, if people are being marched to jail in handcuffs. Like that's that's not due process, and that's not really upholding civil liberty. But all bets are off when it comes to this story, because people don't care about maintaining civil liberties. They want some kind of cosmic vengeance for something that they can never really quite articulate.
So here's student loan activist Alan Collins saying people on all sides cannot stand the Epstein class and all that represents. It is a very deep core of anger in this country. Goes well beyond Epstein. Massey knows that, so does Roe. That's absolutely true. I get it. I get the politics of it, but it's fucked, Yeah,
I'm not saying it wasn't politically shrewd of them. Did Matt just Matt, did you just did you froze, or did you freeze, or am I freezing right now?
No, I froze. I went off to an astral plane for a moment. And
okay.
Returned. Yeah.
I was worried.
All right. So
no, I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't politically clever of them. They clearly tapped into something. I hate that terminology. They clearly identified an opening in like the political marketplace for somebody who would be like entrepreneurial for people who would be entrepreneurial on this issue and use it to their advantage. So I'm not denying that. And I'm not denying if like you just like invent some nomenclature like Epstein class, given the connotation of Epstein, people are going to agree that they don't like it, whatever you're referring to, but it's a conspiratarded term. It's a conspiratarded terminology. Like, what is Epstein class? Who's a member? What are the criteria for inclusion? Like, it's never really spelled out. Is it anybody who sent a chortling email to Epstein? It's just like a dumbed down shorthand. It's like the newest version of Occupy Wall Street, we are the 99% and we're going after the 1%, except at least there was like some.
No, there was something genuinely this is
No, I mean, there's something genuine about that. This is like sort of a perversion of like the perversion of that, but now it's framed in terms of pedophilia, which makes zero sense. It's not even like a materialistic thing per se.
That's the problem. It's linguistic bootstrapping. It's you're taking people who are not really associated with pedophilia in any way, and you're attaching the name Epstein to a class. Now it's this idea of a class of powerful elites who are bonded by, a pedophilic sex ring, and it's that magic. Epstein class has those connotations, whereas the terms they were using before did not. All right, let's go to SOT 6. Now we're going to move to the American moral mania of the
Also,
moment.
is there anybody who would agree that everyone from Donald Trump to that the woman who I think didn't you have some kind of brawl with, who's the delegate that represents the U.S. Virgin Islands? What's her name again?
Stacey Plaskett.
Yeah. Is there anybody who would apply consistent enough criteria to how they deem how they determine membership in the Epstein class, that they would agree that both of those individuals are members? I doubt it. I really doubt there's anybody. So it's going to be fluid membership criteria based on whatever your partisan imperatives are, which is another reason to abrasively discount the legitimacy of the whole terminological construct.
Of course, it's going to be completely non-specific, but also deadly at the same time, right? For your career. All right. This is another thing in your strike zone, Michael. This is Attorney Lisa Bloom talking about her client Lana Drews.
This is a lob right down the middle of the plate.
Yeah, this is straight down Broadway. As Dennis Eckersley would call this, average cheese, which means not that great of a fastball. Let's
she doesn't have her stuff today.
Right, exactly. Doesn't have the cheese with hair on it. So let's hear Lisa Bloom.
Well, I'm very proud to represent the brave Lana Drews. Right after the press conference, we went to the sheriff's station in West Hollywood, which is the appropriate jurisdiction for her complaint. We sat down with the detective there and a couple of other deputies. She answered all of their questions, provided some evidence, and they then took it under submission to investigate. They asked us to return for a follow-up interview. It's now been escalated to the Special Victims Unit and an attorney from the District Attorney's Office. So we returned yesterday with these new folks, and Lana again went through the whole story, answered all of their questions, provided evidence. She has some additional evidence she needs to get out of the storage unit. There are some additional witness names, people she talked to after the incident. So we are following up with all of that, fully cooperating with the sheriff's investigation.
And at this point, I mean, just given that, would it be fair to say that you think law enforcement is taking this seriously?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they have raised it up to a higher level.
All right.
They're taking a great deal of time, and there's no question in my mind.
So what's notable about this is that Lisa Bloom here, again, who notoriously confected the Katie Johnson hoax for the 2016 election that we talked about.
Can we put the Katie Johnson suit up on screen while Michael talks?
The Katie Johnson suit. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
She's saying that she and her client, this woman who accused Swalwell last week of
scroll down a little bit if you could.
Of drugging and raping her in 2018. She then proceeded to go to the LA County Sheriff's office and give her statement and supply evidence allegedly and answer questions. And then she went back for a second time. But Lisa Bloom is saying the woman is still yet to go into some storage unit,
to a storage facility.
Yeah, into a storage to go to some storage facility and retrieve evidence that she has not yet provided. And how Lisa Bloom words it makes it a little bit unclear, but she seems to be indicating that in order to provide law enforcement with the names of witnesses whom this woman allegedly told about the incident with Swalwell at the time that it happened, she has to go into the storage unit. which she's yet to locate yet, or she's yet to find the evidence that's allegedly
that
contained
feels
in the
like
storage
a
unit.
thing you would would have wanted to get in.
Yeah, make it your ducks in a row. Yeah,
exactly.
Especially especially before trip 2 to the sheriff's department or to meet with the special victims unit at the prosecutor's office, right? So I guess we're all waiting with bated breath to see if she is able to burrow through her old storage, boxes and find. I don't even know what she would be. What's the item that she would be finding that would somehow tell her what the names are of the witnesses that she spoke to 6 years ago?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's some kind of written notes about the incident. Theoretically, I mean, a diary. I don't know.
Theoretically.
And by the way, folks, look at these factual allegations in the Katie Johnson suit.
If you scroll all the way down, I mean, I don't know if it's on this one, but there's almost like an affidavit where it's the most graphic version of the allegation.
On the first occasion involving the defendant Donald J. Trump, the plaintiff Katie Johnson was forced to manually stimulate Donald Trump with the use of her hand upon Donald Trump's erect penis until he reached sexual orgasm. And there's Jeffrey Epstein with forcible rape. On the third occasion involving the defendant, the plaintiff was forced to engage in an unnatural lesbian sex act with her fellow minor and sex slave Maria Doe, aged 12, for the sexual enjoyment of Donald Trump. Anyway, I mean, this is stuff where they couldn't even establish the dates and where this exactly happened, or they couldn't prove it anyway. Right?
I know. Actually, so there's a version of this law. There's a version of this file you can find where attached at the end there's an affidavit sworn by quote unquote Katie Johnson, where she's reciting what happened in the first person. Supposedly, and I think she does actually make a claim as to the location of one of the brutal gang rapes. But I don't know. People might not remember this, but so this was introduced maybe in June of 2016, and then it got reintroduced. A new version of it was filed in October of 2016, and there was supposed to be this big climactic payoff where Lisa Bloom was going to be holding a press conference where she was going to unveil Katie Johnson. And at the last second, Katie Johnson never showed up, and Lisa Bloom made some kind of statement where she was in fear of her life. She was, it was too dangerous for her to show up. She's too frightened, and then they just dropped it. And then her and her mother, Gloria Allred, got caught basically running this kind of operation to field accusers against Trump, in concert with Democratic Party entities, and it was very, very sleazy. And they made lots of they basically fundraised. You could find a political article. I think it was from Ken Vogel, maybe from 2018, where they go through how Lisa Bloom and Gloria Allred. They claim that Gloria Allred claims she didn't make any money, but it's clear that Lisa Bloom was raking in lots of cash from frantic Democratic donors to see if they could somehow subsidize her to go on a successful fishing expedition to find anybody who could make an actually damaging sexual assault claim against Trump. And she ended up finding a former Apprentice contestant that that one kind of fell apart, but this was sort of the fruits of that effort.
This paragraph is something just as a work of political satire or fiction. Shortly after the sexual assault by the defendant Jeffrey E. Epstein on the plaintiff Johnson was still present when the two defendants were arguing over who would be the one to take plaintiff Johnson's virginity. The defendant Donald J. Trump was clearly heard referring to the defendant Jeffrey E. Epstein as a quote Jew bastard, as he yelled at defendant Epstein that clearly he, defendant Trump, should be the lucky one to quote pop the cherry of plaintiff Johnson. So that's the level of that lawsuit. All right. So
here's folks. So here's the version of it where it's told in the first person, and it's even wilder. So, for example, this is supposedly Katie Johnson narrating it. Defendant Trump had sexual contact with me at 4 different parties in the summer of 1994. On the 4th and final sexual encounter with defendant Trump tied me to a bed, exposed himself to me, and then proceeded to forcibly rape me. During the course of the savage attack, I loudly pleaded with defendant Trump to stop, but he did not. Defendant Trump responded to my pleas by violently striking me in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wanted. Immediately following this rape, defendant Trump threatened me that were I to ever reveal any of the details of defendant Trump's sexual and physical abuse of me, my family and I would be physically harmed, if not killed. Defendant Epstein had sexual contact with me at 2 of the parties that summer. On the second occasion involving defendant Epstein forced himself upon me and proceeded to rape me anally and vaginally, despite my loud pleas to stop. Defendant Epstein then attempted to strike me about the head with his closed fist while he angrily screamed at me that he, defendant Epstein, should have been the first one who took my virginity, not defendant Trump, before I managed to break away from defendant Epstein. Immediately following this rape, just like defendant Trump, defendant Epstein threatened me not to ever reveal the details of defendant Epstein's sexual physical abuse, or else my family would be killed, etc. And then there's also the gang rape accusation and whatnot. That's what I was reading from. And so this was above and beyond even just any ordinary confabulation. They actually confabulated a first person narration of it from
yes. And at MIEP Kelly asks, this is obviously made up BS. Why are we wasting time here? Is there a point? There's a point.
Who's forcing you to watch this? That's a good follow-up question, isn't it?
That's one follow-up question, but another one is that this person, Lisa Bloom, is in the middle of this spiraling major scandal in America right now, where her client is leveling the most serious accusation at Eric Swalwell, the former.
This is creating a precedent for how the House of Representatives organizes itself.
Right, exactly. And look, this Swalwell thing is a big deal, right? It's the kind of high speed sort of political assassination that can now be done in days rather than weeks previously, right? Or less hours, right? And as we talked about, the accuser, Drews, basically had been she'd been using kind of therapy called EMDR, which we did a little research over the weekend, and we talked to some folks who are specialists in this field, and the consensus is that it's the kind of thing that can be helpful if there are real memories, but if the memories are not there, that there can be real mischief and real problems, so this is not confidence inspiring background to have Lisa Bloom and EMDR therapy in the same package.
Yeah, people were angry at me for not being nice enough about the supposed efficacy of this EMDR treatment. If it's found to be effective for someone, anecdotally or clinically, there's no empirical basis to believe that the technique specific to EMDR therapy, meaning the waving an instrument in front of somebody's eyes and causing their eyes to flutter in certain directions, that's the causal mechanism by which they're getting some beneficial results. Now, the therapy can be conducted in a way where it includes this thing called exposure therapy, where basically you're kind of confronting this traumatic memory of yours that you're not wanting to grapple with, and so it's really bothering you. But once you kind of expose yourself to it, it kind of lessens in its impact on your psychological state. So that can happen in concert with the eye fluttering technique in EMDR therapy. But in terms of the thing that's unique, the aspect of it that's unique to EMDR therapy, the eye fluttering thing where have a wand waved in front of your eyes, essentially, there's no empirical basis to think that that's effective at doing anything. Now, obviously, you can have placebo, you can have maybe incidental benefits from some other aspect of the therapy, whatever it might be. It's just there's no actual credible study. Yeah. Just being in a therapeutic setting. So that's my point. But but when you add on top of it, I mean, where the potentially nefarious part comes in is if like you're purporting to be able to use this EMDR therapy to cause people to reimagine their memories or like implant different emotional content on them, then you're liable to just basically catalyze them into generating brand new memories, even if they think it's a real memory that they're just like reimagining.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we were told here at Racket, that there are memory undermining effects there can be, that you can remember incidents that didn't happen,
especially because you're
pressure.
Especially given the suggestibility of the therapist dynamic, or meaning if you're seeking out therapy at at a trauma center of some kind, then it's presupposed that you're experiencing trauma from whatever the memory that you've got is. And so they're already starting from the assumption that you had this traumatic memory, and the job of the therapist is to sort of extract it out and get you to sort of mold it into some new memory, or some reimagined memory. And so all the trauma jargon is already kind of this default premise, and so you're then very liable to have you're going in there in a suggestible posture,
right,
for the therapist to kind of shape your conclusions about stuff.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's very therapist dependent. It depends on what kind of therapist you got. But the point is, this is not if you're reporting on this, it's not the kind of thing that makes you feel good when you see it. When you're reporting the account. All right. So Eric Swalwell's being hit from all sides now. There are stories coming out. New York Post had a headline: staggering number of booze deliveries Eric Swalwell charged to campaign, including Vegas Bender. Political Magazine: Eric Swalwell thought he was untouchable until he wasn't. And this again fits a pattern that we're seeing, where there's an incredibly serious charge, right? I mean, the Drews charge is, couldn't be more serious. He drugged me, raped me, choked me, right? And then we're coupling that with there was booze delivered to his office. And then there's another question now about how this story came out, and I can't believe that I missed this when I first read it. But a person named Ariel Fodor, who is often, what's her nickname again?
Mrs. Frazzled.
Mrs. Frazzled.
Which I'm annoyed I even had to learn.
Yeah. So she played a key role in this whole thing coming forward by, if I remember correctly, she essentially tweeted something very positive about.
It was TikTok. It was TikTok. Because she became a big TikTok influencer / content creator by doing these sort of parody style videos where she would speak in the affectation of a kindergarten teacher, which she was previously, but act as though she was speaking to Donald Trump or speaking to some other political figure as though they were a kindergartner, right? And apparently this has made her now a big influential influencer, such that she got involved in this because I guess I was gonna say Epstein. Swalwell's campaign was seeking her out to get him on for an interview with her.
Yeah, and she endorsed him.
I don't know if she officially endorsed him, but she was favorable toward him.
Yeah, she said something very favorable about him, and then was contacted.
That's why she was going to be doing this quasi interview with him.
Yeah, and she got contacted by a bunch of people. Now let's look at SOT 8. This is her on CNN, Ariel Fodor, and see if that name rings any bells. See if this face and presentation rings any bells. But let's listen to this little interview here, bits of it anyway.
I saw your post from a few weeks ago where you had talked about how this all kind of first came to your attention as someone who's, not this Washington insider, but as someone who got messages from people you knew with allegations about the congressman.
Yes. And I mean, I am so thankful that he is stepping down and doing the right thing here. But the bottom line is this never should have happened in the first place. And I am just so proud of the women like Allie who came forward. I know how much it takes. And I am just like in awe of them. Like they are so courageous.
Can you talk about what it was like when you had done an interview with him and you had posted about it, and it was in response to that women had reached out to you. It sounds like with similar stories, or that they had heard similar stories to what Allie was just telling Pamela in that interview.
Yeah, at first when I was on like his creator launch call thing, I thought, wow, really charismatic guy, very great on camera. And then I had an interview scheduled with him, and he had posted a story, and I reposted it, just sharing that sentiment. And instantly people started messaging me. I had 3 people say, slow your roll. This is not a great guy. He is like, don't give him your phone number. He'll send you inappropriate messages, all types of things. But I mean, that is not normal. I interview a lot of politicians, and that is the first time ever that that's happened. So I was gobsmacked, to be honest with you. I was like, what the heck is going on here?
What do you make of the reaction you got when you first shared this?
I feel like I'm in kindergarten
heard,
listening to my teacher talk.
I know. But you'll feel more like that in a second.
With Eric Swalwell saying he's going to resign his seat in Congress. He's still saying he's going to fight these allegations. He's still denying some of them, and while acknowledging clearly, as Pamela was saying in that denial, that he said mistakes have been made. What do you make, though, of what happened then to where it culminated?
Well, I never really set out to, by the time I was posting, I was never thinking, oh, this is going to be received very well. Like the goal always has been just, I need to essentially bang pots and pans on the internet so that these women do not know, or rather the women know that they're not alone. They thought that they were the only ones this had happened to. They didn't know in many cases anybody else
Pause. Sorry, we have to pause for a second.
Pause. Yeah, bang pots and pans.
Well, hold on a second. First of all, everybody's supposed to be commending their courage. Their courage to what? Anonymous. Blah, blah, blah. Tongue-tied because I'm so annoyed. Anonymously whisper to one another.
Yeah. No. And
about what exactly? Meaning they keep saying what happened to them. Okay, how come they never spell out what these women are saying allegedly happened to them? Because
it's a
she was
contact.
contacted by people who were not even alleging anything assaultive, or they were alleging kind of like creepy behavior, they claim, meaning he would have these messaging exchanges with younger women. That's what she was being alerted to, not rape.
Right. No, I know, but it's all being lumped together.
It's all lumped together.
Right.
Because, Caitlin Collins, of course, never would ask a clarifying question along those lines.
No, and why not? Look, I don't believe for a second that the journalists don't know exactly what the deal is here. When they want to be very specific, when they want to nail people down on things, they do. And with this, they know exactly what they're doing. They know that that things are being confabulated.
I don't know. I wonder. Like maybe they're just so oblivious, or maybe they're just so inattentive to it that. So you're saying that Caitlin Collins right now is consciously thinking to herself, I could ask a clarifying question to just get on the record what conduct we're even talking about here, supposedly, and she's just cynically choosing not to. I don't know. I think they're kind of just in this bubble when these stories emerge that I don't know. It just didn't even occur to them.
How could it not occur to you though? How if you're on air and you're directing a show and somebody and you've guided somebody to the point where they're now telling a story about ostensible sexual misconduct and you don't nail down exactly what it is, I don't know.
Maybe you're right, because it would be so ridiculous if she did actually spell out the conduct that caused her to launch this big, fishing expedition, which was it was seriously that there was women who were claiming that they got messages from him, and they maybe like flirted for a bit, and then this was all, retroactively supposed to be understood as predatory because there was a power dynamic. That's it.
So that's how this whole thing got started, and that's how we get the wrestling tag team maneuver to Lisa Bloom and the very, very serious criminal allegation, right?
Yeah, Lisa Bloom got tagged in and delivered the power bomb.
Right. Okay, but in between, who is Mrs. Frazzle? Who is Ariel Fodor? I can't believe I forgot this. Let's travel back in time to 2024, summer 2024, and this is a clip from the White Women for Harris group chat, and everybody grab a bucket.
Ariel Fodor, affectionately known as Mrs. Frazzle to her combined audience of over 1.5 million followers, is here to help gentle parent us through this election.
Thank you. Hi,
Gentle
everybody.
parent me, daddy.
I'm so honored to speak today. I am like shaking to just be among such incredible company. We are here because
I'm sorry, there's something about her whole
earlier
affect
you
that
heard
would
BIPOC women have
caused me to want to blow my brains out if I had to be exposed to it for like more than 2.5
Yeah,
minutes.
this is Gitmo level shit. But go ahead. Yeah.
tapped us in as white women to step up.
But we
listen,
got to
and
back
get
up for a
involved
second.
This
Sorry.
election season.
You missed that, Michael.
We are here because, as if you were here earlier, you've heard BIPOC women have tapped us in as white women to step up, listen, and get involved this election season. This is a really important time.
What does that even
and we
mean?
all
That's
need
not
to
a
use our
wrestling reference,
voices
is
and
it?
influence for the greater good. No matter who you are all influencers in some way.
Is it like a relay race where you, like, you
Tonight,
tap
I'm going to
the,
share some do's and don'ts for
what's it
getting
called?
involved in politics online
Wait,
and
do's and
navigating
don'ts.
the toxicity that comes with it. And spoiler alert, as much as the toxicity can come from the outside, it can come from us too. So first, don't isolate yourself. We can do our best work when we're in community together like we are tonight, because the toxic feels smaller when we support each other.
I would drink
Don't
the
make it
Kool-Aid,
about
like the Jim
yourself.
Jones Kool-Aid at this point, and
As
just be
white
done with
women,
it.
we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid,
God
correcting
forbid.
them, just take a beat. And instead, we
God
can put
forbid
our
correcting
listening
them.
ears on. So do learn
Wait,
from
I'm sorry. Back
and
up just for
amplify
1
the
second.
voices of those.
That was the key. That's
So
the
that
key
means,
quote.
I guess that
Wait.
would include Kamala Harris. Like, God forbid anybody to like attempt to correct her on one of her contested political claims.
Yes, but if God forbid you catch yourself correcting them, here's what you should do.
Forbid correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized, and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn.
Okay.
So do
this is literal
check your
infantilization, meaning she's speaking at an adult political event of some sort, as though she were speaking to her kindergarten class, because this is what made her popular on TikTok, right? And this is why she was invited on, had such a big audience, where she was seen as this big asset for the Kamala little satellite campaign that they were running for white women. It's like, sometimes, like, if you say something is infantilizing, it tends to be a little bit more figurative. But no, this is so on the nose.
Yeah, as I've mentioned before, I have a literally jar upstairs where my kids are not allowed to use the word unless you really need to use literally. But this is literally infantilizing.
Yeah.
right. And
people use literally now to mean figuratively.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Which I'm guilty of at times.
Or very, right.
Yeah.
And this whole thing where she plays a kindergarten teacher who has to talk down to people, and it's a shtick, and now it's bled into her actual persona. But the weird thing is the seamless way that fits with this didactic bizarre academic theory where we're always wrong, and God forbid put your listening ears on. Anyway, the fact that,
and now with the small thing, you're never supposed to correct the women who claim that they're survivors, right?
Exactly. So it's just the same thing. It's just moved over to a different, as one professor I was listening to recently said, the I don't know what, I'm sorry, I think it's like the I was victimized isn't equal. In other words, there are different levels of I was victimized. So this is just a different victim group, but everybody
there's a taxonomy of victimization.
There's a taxonomy of victimization, but it's just another group that has to be believed at all costs. And now there's this sort of open celebration. The New York Times had a story, the women behind the Whisper Network that brought down Eric Swalwell, that referenced Fodor along with Cheyenne Hunt, who's another influencer. And there's a lot of proud discussion about this Whisper Network.
Yeah, we're supposed to all be thrilled that a Whisper Network, meaning whispering rumors behind the scenes to one another, we're all supposed to think it's like this great triumph that is sufficient to take somebody down now.
Right. Yeah, and
because like influencers are doing it, and nobody knows how to handle the new political sway that influencers enjoy. Remember when Democrats were hand-wringing not too long ago about how they lost young men? How do we bring back the young men? How do we tweak our message so that we're appealing to young men?
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the fact that all you need now is a Whisper Network where some, activist ladies can decide that a certain behavior is creepy, which, certain cases it may well be, that's fine if you don't want to date them. But if you're going to spin it into like this condemnatory, career obliterating, perhaps even criminally inculpating political narrative, then I don't know. I mean, some guys, yes, are going to get not me, but people. Okay. So like, leave me out of it. I know everybody wants to kind of spin, turn things around on me as though I'm like projecting these deep, like subconscious, desires or something. No, I mean, people, there are going to be guys who look at an episode like this and think to themselves, it seems like in the Democratic Party, if you give any sign that you're kind of like a little bit boisterously masculine and you're like courting of romantic engagement, then you're going to be on the chopping block. And this happens over and over again to men, because like the most vulnerable to this are who in society? It's older, men, maybe. I was going to say older men. I guess Eric Swalwell wasn't that old, but no, he wasn't relatively older men.
And not even
who are Democrats or liberals.
White
and
men. I mean,
therefore
look at Conyers, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Andrew Cuomo.
Right.
Like they're the most susceptible to this because they have to do this high wire act where they, on the one hand, have to seem to be placating some of the ideology around believing women and so forth, or being hypersensitive to these kinds of complaints, but then also refuting them when they're level at them, which kind of like doesn't always really work out so well. It's kind of like an impossible scenario. Whereas, Republican, not that Republicans are totally immune to it, but they're not dealing with a political coalition where they have to cater to these kind of excitable, misfrazzled types who can just snap their fingers and all of a sudden, the knife gets stuck in whoever they're going after.
So this is an actual intellectual theory at work here. They're not just riffing. The idea behind a Whisper Network is that people who are sexual abusers, whether it's Epstein or Swalwell or Trump or whoever, they're impossible to dislodge using the normal processes. So we can't rely on the processes. And we can't afford due process anymore. So we're gonna move over to a Whisper Network, which has this power to vaporize politicians overnight, and that's a good thing. You know, it's a necessary evil, and it's an exact reversal of what liberal politics used to believe, right? Like the fundamental principle of liberal politics, at least when I was growing up, was that you would bend over backwards to prevent one innocent person from being.
Yeah, better that 10 guilty men go free than that one innocent man goes
right.
goes to jail.
And so, I mean, in honesty, like, I don't know. This is an uncomfortable question, but how does a man vote for the Democratic Party at this point? Like, I mean, maybe not. Maybe you can't vote for the Republican Party either. But for the Democratic Party, it's very difficult because they're coming up with these ideas that basically say that if you get accused, you don't have recourse. You're guilty already.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there would be men who would say, "Look, I would never get caught dead engaging in any of this kinds of behavior." And look, I mean, Swalwell probably was a little outside the norm in terms of his, assertiveness, and maybe kind of like just going like constantly looking for who he could possibly hook up with.
Oh, no, there's no question that he was.
But like, just to kind of steelman the case, I guess, for these whisper networks or these informal networks of women, right, who kind of link up amongst themselves and warn each other about some guy who they would advise, a friend or acquaintance to not get involved with because he has a pattern of questionable behavior. I mean, okay, let's say there is a guy who does do like what they would regard to be genuinely creepy stuff. Okay, meaning, yeah, I don't know, get just too aggressively flirtatious with somebody who wasn't really expecting it. Maybe he uses kind of like a pretext or a ruse to start up a personal, exchange with them. I don't know, like, there's something that you could like imagine potentially being reasonable that like younger women might want to warn each other about, especially in the context of like a congressional office or something. So if it comes to just private dealings or, just dating or like social events like that could be defensible, possibly, right? But suddenly the Whisper Network, which was supposed to be the whole point of Whisper Network was that it was contained to whispering. It was supposed to be this public spectacle.
Yeah,
but now it gets converted into
a megaphone network. Yeah,
but now it gets converted into like the grounds on which somebody can be publicly defenestrated. So it's no longer a whisper network. Now it's a cudgel to be used like in the public glare. So now it's something else. Now it's not a whisper network anymore and can't be defended on the grounds that
and it's not just about losing not just about losing your job, not just about removing people from office, not just about getting people out of political campaigns, but triggering criminal investigations. I mean, this is it
exactly.
And this, you might remember the shitty liberal media men.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah, shitty media men.
Shitty media men, and like I knew some of those people, and some of them, I guess, there was a little bit of something behind it, but others were just mystifying. And okay, look, here's a question.
That was an anonymous spreadsheet that got circulated around the time of Me Too, because it was like, okay, we started with Hollywood, then we did whatever other industries. Now we got to go to like digital media and have our own thorough Me Too reckoning. And so
reckoning.
This person, everything's always a reckoning. And there's this woman, what's her name now? I forget. Who she started up this anonymous spreadsheet for shitty media men, and that was supposed to be like that was kind of supposed to be a whisper network as well. Meaning the claim was that was never supposed to be public, but of course, anything that gets circulated widely among the media is going to be made public. So anybody who was on it was assumed guilty of some kind of sexual violation.
It can be career destroying. It can be life altering.
So I guess just to sort of like as fairly as possible understand what a counter argument this could be. If there is just like a informal group of women who do feel like it's imperative to warn one another about the genuinely kind of questionable activities of some guy, you could see that being defensible if it's actually confined to a whisper network. But like a whisper network is no longer a whisper network if we're not whispering about it and we're talking about it, in public as like a decisive political factor.
Yeah, and we've got DAs issuing subpoenas and grand juries and shit like that. Here's at Brian M /G.
And I was not on the shitty media men list, people. Okay,
Were you?
I was not.
Oh, you're not.
Just in case anybody gets any bad ideas.
I wasn't.
Maybe my
either,
life would be more exciting if I
surprisingly,
had
yeah.
been on it, but yeah, it's not. So.
Here's a quote. Swalwell was, quote, a little outside the norm. Yeah, just like Epstein, right? MT. I don't know what people mean by this. I've never denied that Epstein was
incredibly abnormal. Are you kidding?
Incredibly abnormal.
Has anybody ever been photographed more in human history than that guy? I mean, it's wild.
Yeah, and the few people who I've talked to who knew him, from what I can tell, he severely abnormal, maybe even, a monster, I think is a word I might even use.
Maybe like a, I don't know if I would say whatever adjective, like monstrous or something, but there was also some kind of crazed genius to him as well.
Yeah, as a con man, completely.
Well, no, but people just say in terms of his raw intelligence in terms of like his just cognitive aptitude. Like there are people who have told me that they think, multiple people have independently told me who knew him that he was either the most or one of the most intelligent people they ever interacted with in their lives. And that's people who don't even necessarily like him that much, Yeah,
I mean, he held all these weird sort of ad hoc seminars with academics in the 90s, and there were no women at those. These were some of the the top people in academia for years. But I've never denied that his personal conduct was like outrageous, criminal, abnormal, all that stuff. I just think lumping him together with Eric Swalwell, we just don't know yet. And the problem with Swalwell is we have this mixture of accusations, some of which are like the absolute most serious things that you can be accused of, and then there are others that are like he touched my leg at a bar, he made an inappropriate comment on the internet, like, and it's all lumped together, and I think that the press is complicit in this smushing of serious and unserious, which I don't know. I worry about that trend a lot, right? Because you can do almost anything to anybody. And
here's how it works, right? So you might have not even seen this. So last Friday, right? So we were, I think, so it was like the morning after we recorded our last get together here. The San Francisco Chronicle did a follow up on Swalwell, where they're mostly just kind of summarizing what's gone on with him in what had then been the prior it's 5 days or whatever. But here's the headline. So this is April 17th. So this is the same two reporters from the San Francisco Chronicle who again, like some of these influencers ended up coordinating with. Eric Swalwell's rapid fall leaves allies reeling as more women come forward. So that they don't lead with the new women coming forward is enough of a tell, right? Because they're nothing stories. I mean, they have to combine it with this kind of just generic retelling or like generic sort of roundup of the latest news, right? It's not just like headline new woman comes forward. So here you go. One woman whose story is first reported here, so they quote buried the lead, to use the journalistic cliche, because there's no reason this shouldn't be at the top if it's really that blockbuster. Says she met Swalwell in early 2016 when he visited the campus Democratic Club at UC San Diego where she was a student. The woman, then 27, said she spoke with, so in 2016, she would have been 27 and he would have been what? He would have been probably, I think 35, something like that. So, harrowing power dynamic. The woman, then 27, said she spoke with Swalwell about a problem with financial aid applications that delayed her from pursuing a college education, and that she hoped he might take up as a cause. After giving Swalwell her phone number to follow up, The woman who shared her experience on the condition of anonymity, so like no explanation needs to be given for why this person warrants the ascription of anonymity. She just wants it, and that's enough. Said he began sending flirty messages on Snapchat, which allows people to send messages and photos that disappear in seconds. The woman took videos of some of the exchanges, which she shared with the Chronicle, showing Swalwell inquiring about her love life, sending photos of himself lying in bed and asking to meet up. Though she initially felt validated by the attention from a member of Congress, the woman said she cut off contact when she learned Swalwell was married. Quote, "Our politicians are supposed to be the best amongst us, and they're not," she said. That illusion shattered around that time. Okay, so the sum total of that allegation with which that woman, anonymous woman, quote, came forward, another melodramatic cliche, is she gave him her number. They chatted for a bit. It got a little bit flirtatious, and then she decided to stop talking to him when she found out that he was married. I think he might have been actually married after that, because he got married in like late 2016 or something. So who knows what the timeline is exactly? But that's it. Like, that's a woman coming forward. So then how is that then cast? It's, more women come forward to corroborate the more outlandish allegations.
Right. That's the sleight of hand journalistic trick that scares me about this whole thing. Right. You have something there isn't even a thing. Look, is it smart behavior by a member of the House to be flirting online with somebody you just knew? Like, no, of course not.
They met in person, apparently.
Well, yes, but even so, like, I think in this day and age, I think
in this day that was even pre-Me Too.
Yeah, I guess so. I just
don't. Okay, so look, I mean, if I was like if I was his like chief of staff or something, or advising him, and like knowing that he wants to maybe run for president or become governor, I would tell him cool your jets, be a little bit more cautious, fine, but like it's not this. That is not like extreme behavior. I'm sorry.
No.
And then here's the second. So there were two women who supposedly came forward, according to this San Francisco Chronicle article. So this one was more. This one was originally online. Yeah, this is it. One woman, a Bay Area resident whose story is first reported here. Oh wow, great scoop. Said she reached out to Swalwell on Twitter, now known as X, because she had family members stuck overseas. She said he was very helpful and continued to check in with her after it was resolved. Within a few weeks, the woman, who was 23 at the time. So these are women in their 20s who, I guess, just by citing their age, that's supposed to have us assume that they are.
This is another
incredibly vulnerable
that's
and preyed
repeated.
upon.
Yeah.
And shared her experience on the condition of anonymity. Again, no further justification needed for that. Swalwell added her on Snapchat, etc. So it's the same pattern. The messages were, got eventually more flirtatious. They started to come late at night, blah, blah, blah.
But she didn't want to cut him off.
Yeah, the woman said she never sent Swalwell photos or flirted back. I mean, who knows? But she didn't want to cut him off either because he was offering mentorship for her career. She continued the conversation for a few months. So it was such a troubling experience for her that she continued for months to engage in these conversations.
Yeah,
and eventually but she felt he was trying to take advantage of her. It was just so predatory, she said. Maybe he thought I was a young, naive girl who would be amazed at his position and who he is and his power. I'm sorry, a 23-year-old woman knows if she's in a predatory situation. We're not talking about an 11-year-old. A 23-year-old woman knows if she's in a compromising or predatory situation such that she would not carry on with it for months and just willingly subject herself to this predation. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, and then look at the picture below the fold here, below the digital fold.
Right
now
you have it's the rape alleging.
It's the forcible. Well, the rape while unconscious. I said no. He choked me. Claim I don't want to be unsensitive about the whole thing, but
I do. I mean, don't we have way too much oversensitivity? Like, don't we need like a bit of a corrective here?
Yeah, no, there has to be a little bit of pendulum swinging back, and I can't reiterate how much I can't stand Eric Swalwell.
Why should I go bend over backwards to evince my sensitivity towards these anonymous adult women? So the 27-year-old in 2016 would be how old now? 37?
Right.
Why does that person warrant my sensitivity? I actually think she warrants scorn because it's cowardly to do this, and the same scorn should be directed to the journalists who enable it. Like, why is that person anonymous? What is she a victim of that would entitle her to anonymity under the cover of some journalistic auspice?
The only reason I can think of as a journalist to give that person anonymity is if they gave me something that was incontrovertible, like screenshots or emails, and I knew it was true, right? So
I think it's just like a reflex where, because like whatever she's alleging is in the vicinity of victimhood. Therefore, it's presumptive that she'll be afforded anonymity.
Right. Well, no, I mean, that's
like because they could ask her, hey, go on the record with this, right? That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But that wouldn't even be a thought, because the practice is anybody who alleges something that could be construed as at all victimizing is automatically afforded anonymity. It's like a dogma. And it's the quote policy that never gets examined somehow.
Same with the use survivor. Like, I wouldn't use that word. I wouldn't, not until after a case. But look, this is a general problem in journalism where it used to be there was a presumption that if you had anonymous sources in a story, look, sometimes they're necessary. Sometimes there's no other way to get a story out. If you think it's really important, you're sure it's true, right? But the presumption used to be that as soon as you possibly could, you had to get somebody on the record. You had to start moving those off the record sources to on the record as quickly as possible in order to give the whole thing some validity. That all went out the window. Like, think about all the Russiagate stories, even the WMD stories, right? That where they had unnamed sources, and there was never any pressure on these people to put people on the record. But with these kinds of cases, now there's a specific, like, affirmative thing where
it's not even an aspiration to get these people on the record.
Right. Yeah.
The aspiration is to assist them in retaining their anonymity.
Right. Even people who have nothing to hide, some
of these are like political operatives.
Operatives. They're on TV all the time, but they're blacked out. It's weird. It's a weird thing. So that's all advancing apace really quickly. Michael, I wanted to get really quickly to one last kind of story that I think is an interesting. It's another interesting, like, reporting story. It's the bit about Kash Patel and his spat with the Atlantic.
Yeah. Did you read the complaint?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
I read it.
So okay, it starts with a story in the Atlantic. Can we see the headline here? The FBI director is MIA. And
I think there might have been a different headline initially, because don't they claim in the complaint that they stealth edited the headline?
Oh, did they do that? I don't even remember.
If you pull up, I didn't see the stealth edit, but it's alleged in the complaint that there was a stealth edit.
I remember that the allegation about the stealth edit. Hang on a second. So this is kind of it's an interesting story. It's sort of a conundrum, but essentially this Atlantic story alleges that Kash Patel is a drunk, and it relies on anonymous sources. Hang on a second. Let me find the stealth.
Well, in this opening anecdote about how on April 10th, as he was preparing to leave work, he couldn't log on to his internal computer system. In the complaint, it's verified that actually took place. He's just complaining that it was mischaracterized,
right?
Or that he didn't think that he was fired, which is what is which is what reportedly happened here, according to the Atlantic. But ironically, he just confirmed that there was some incident where he was not able to log on to his computer system.
Yeah.
Meaning the whole thing can't be fabricated, right? Like there was some credibility underlying whoever told this reporter about that episode.
Yep. Actually, can we not see the complaint? Can we go to the Fox segment number 18? And this is Patel talking about the lawsuit. Now he sues for $250 million.
So this is just him bringing the lawsuit in his personal capacity, right? Is the FBI funding? Is the FBI paying the lawyers here? Are they doing it pro bono? Is he paying them out of his own pocket? Has it been clarified?
The government's not a plaintiff.
I know. So presumably he wouldn't be using FBI resources to do this, but who knows with the second Trump administration?
That's true. Yeah. All right. So here he is on with Maria Bartiromo. Let's see what he says.
So if I'm not doing my job, if I'm not working, then how is it that the FBI delivered the safest America under President Trump's leadership in the history of our country? And so you know what? They can beat their drums and stand next to toxic waste all they want, but that doesn't make it toxic waste. And Maria, I'm happy to announce on your show that we are not going to take this laying down. You want to attack my character? Come at me. Bring it on. I'll see you in court.
So
we're not going to take it.
Absolutely. It's coming tomorrow.
Tomorrow you will be dropping a lawsuit against the Atlantic magazine.
Yes, I will, for defamation. And because you know what, Maria? We have to fight back against the fake news. It's one of the many things that President Trump is so successful at in leading out on, because no one is attacked as baselessly as he is and as much as he is. And our leaders that get attacked under his brilliant leadership must do the same. And I won't tolerate their attacks on me, because they are indirect attacks on the men and women of the FBI that we've cleaned up. And this historic, prolific year of crime reduction across the board is something that all Americans should be. And we're going to get after the fight. And if the fake news mafia wants to, ring their drumbeat as loud as they can, they're never going to stop me from completing the mission that President Trump asked me to do, which is safeguarding America. And we're doing it better than ever before.
So can we just reflect for a moment on something that is wild about this? I'm not glamorizing the past or like past iterations of the FBI or like, we got to look at every prior FBI director through rose-colored glasses or anything, but it would never have been thinkable before that the FBI director would be just like, another Sunday news talk show guest and making these, blatantly political appearances where they're teasing a lawsuit that they're going to file in their own personal capacity the next day, and they want to do a whole show of it. And Kash Patel does this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's because we would never have had a situation where the FBI director would be sort of anxious to tie his or her own political fortune to that of the president, right? Just quickly, you're right. The original headline in that article was Kash Patel's erratic behavior could cost him his job, and the subhead was the FBI director has alarmed colleagues with episodes of excessive drinking and unexplained absences. The three things that I think are that seem to be most substantive in the complaint are they stealth edited the headline really quickly. The request for comment came 2 hours. The 19 question request for comment came 2 hours before pub time, and
so it wasn't a legitimate request for comment. They say it was pretextual, just so they could get a no comment and then rush ahead with it.
Right. And then the sources were all anonymous, right? This is it's an interesting case. It feels kind of like an edge case to me. Like he's not going to win, right?
I don't think it's an edge case. I think it's pretty plainly meritless. Meaning there's no actual. I don't think there's any reasonable claim to actionability here.
It's not actionable, but this
could maybe be an op-ed where he's criticizing the piece.
Yeah, I mean
defamation. No,
okay, 30 years ago, would a newspaper have gone on record calling somebody an excessive drinker without an on-the-record source and without giving the person a chance to really reply. And the edit makes me think that there was an editor who's had a no shit moment right after it was published. So, you know, I don't know. This is the kind of thing that I would like personally. I wouldn't go near if I was an editor. You know, an anonymously sourced accusation about something like this. Maybe it's true. I don't know, but
yeah, but so like, but one of his points is supposedly that he's sort of like purporting that he knows who the sources must be, and that they're people with an axe to grind.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's just stipulate that that's true. It may be true. Anonymous sources telling a reporter unflattering information about a prominent public official, even if they do have an axe to grind, that's not going to be something that could satisfy the criteria for actual malice. I mean, you could criticize the journalistic validity of it if you wanted, but in terms of defamation, no, I just think it's too much of a stretch. I mean, this seems almost like Kash Patel's version of what Trump did when he sued the Wall Street Journal after the Wall Street Journal published the birthday book letter over the summer, or reported on it, and they quoted from it. Trump said it was all
but
fake.
the birthday book letter exists.
It's not quite analogous, but it seems like the tenor of this lawsuit is pretty similar. And Trump was also purporting to sue in his own personal capacity.
Right.
In that lawsuit, it's so funny. Like,
he's a private person.
They claim he's a private citizen, like a private resident of Florida or something. And one of the reasons why it constitutes actual malice, Trump claimed in that complaint that got tossed out last week, was that Trump told them that the information was false, with the idea being that just his denial of the veracity of what was being reported ought to have been sufficient for them not to publish. And Kash Patel makes a similar claim here. Like the Atlantic was told that this was false by us, and therefore that shows that their state of mind was one of actual malice, which is just like a ridiculous argument to me.
Well, yeah, but the argument is they didn't lay it out very well, but the argument is really they weren't interested in the Contra case because they only contacted us 2 hours before press time, and they couldn't possibly have had a chance to investigate that, and that could be malice, right? Look, this is something that came up in a case with somebody I knew when I was very young. And it's this concept that journalists can escape liability just by attributing the defamatory statement to their real sources, right? You can't say like, well, I did have 3 people telling me this, so it's okay. I only bring this up to talk about a general trend in journalism. Like, for instance, if you go back to, remember that story that the Washington Post published about how Carter Page was an agent of a foreign power, right? Like, by the book, there was nothing wrong with that because they did have there was a court ruling there, right? They did have a source who was talking to them about it, but the underlying information wasn't true. And they might have had an indication that that's the case, right? And
we have no basis to think that the Atlantic had reason to believe that this wasn't true. I mean, maybe it's possible, but we don't have any basis for that.
It's possible, I guess.
Because if you notice, Kash Patel doesn't deny, because they say that Kash Patel was seen to get drunk or seen to drink alcohol to excess at some club in DC, some club in Las Vegas,
and then
one other place. And he doesn't deny that he doesn't deny that he consumed alcohol in either of those places. He denies abusing alcohol, which is subject to interpretation. So that's sort of like telling, because he, in order to establish actual malice, he would have to establish the falsity of it, not just the contestability of the characterization. And yeah, he's on video chugging beers here.
Yeah, let's watch this. This is not a great look either.
It's like a frat party.
Why does he wear? I wouldn't allow someone to put the medal on my.
Why is he even there?
I don't know. What's the song again?
Can't tell. Oh, courtesy of the red, white, and blue.
Courtesy of the red, white, right. All right. Look, it looks fucked. There's no question about it.
One of the lyrics in that song is, "We'll put a boot in your ass," or something. I think that's actually an actual lyric.
And
isn't it Toby Keith?
Is it Toby Keith? I don't know.
So.
Look, the story might very well be true. It's just that this is a thing that's kind of bugged me for a while now. Not even specifically about this case, but it's this whole thing where, yeah, we don't really know whether it's true. Somebody told it to us though, and fuck it, we'll put it out there.
Okay. Yes, I mean, we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. Those are actual lyrics. This is from 2002. So this is like a post 9/11 anthem for a country anthem by Toby Keith.
Right. Not a great look. Yeah, he's not going to get that $250 million. Let's put it. I think that's safe to say. But I mean,
do you think there's an argument to be made that this is chilling, or there's something objectionable about the FBI director having this kind of response to an unfavorable news article, even if you might question some of the journalistic methods?
I think it's bad luck in both directions, frankly, because what ends up happening is that look, this kind of stuff became routine under Trump. People would just print any kind of anything, right? Some of it turned out to be true, some of it didn't. And what ends up happening is people just don't believe the press, or they half believe it, or they sort of believe it, or they believe a little bit of it. And I don't know, it makes everybody look bad in the end. The FBI director shouldn't be responding to this in this way, or if he does this respond to it, it shouldn't be on TV, right?
And if it's so obviously false, yeah, I mean, you're breathing more life into it.
Yeah, you're breathing more life into
Streisand
it.
effect, right? I mean, maybe
right.
That's not quite the right way of putting it, because it was going to be a decently big story regardless.
Right.
But
right.
I don't know. It's like a little bit of a doth protest too much moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And here's what Fire said. Fire, very much, laudably nonpartisan, pro free speech organization, unlike the ACLU, which got hyper politicized and not politicized, but it started to approach its supposed advocacy of free speech with a much more partisan lens. Or in the Trump era, Fire did not, commendably. But here's what they said. On April 20th, FBI Director Kash Patel filed the lawsuit, etc. The Trump administration has a record of punishing critics, and its officials are no strangers to filing lawsuits meant to silence dissent by driving up the cost of speaking. Today's filing by FBI Director Kash Patel has all the markings of that playbook. The First Amendment sets a high bar on defamation cases against public figures. In order to win, Patel must prove not only that the Atlantic published false information, but that the reporter knew it was false, or had serious doubts about it and published it anyway. That high standard is important so that all of us reporters and citizens alike can hold our government accountable. But sometimes the lawsuit is the punishment. Slap suits are weaponized by the wealthy and the well-connected to punish speakers with costly litigation. Even if the suit is ultimately thrown out, there are abuses of America's legal system and Fire fights against these violations of our First Amendment rights. We deserve to know the truth about how our government works. If news outlets knowingly publish false information, they will be held responsible by courts and the readers they serve. But unless Patel can meet the First Amendment's high standard, debate on important issues must remain as the Supreme Court said, uninhibited, robust, and wide open. Okay, so that makes it a little bit kind of a platitudinous. It's a little bit more platitudinous than I would like, but I think the spirit of it is kind of right, because like we shouldn't be looking at this as though it was any run-of-the-mill person who feels that they've gotten defamatory media covers. It's got like the de facto weight of the government behind it, even if it's technically him filing the lawsuit in his personal capacity, which like it's just not tenable. Just like it wasn't tenable for Trump to be filing a lawsuit in his personal capacity. Against the Wall Street Journal.
But against the Wall Street Journal, but so I love Fire. I'm a longtime supporter of them. I love everything that they do. I a little bit disagree with them on this issue, though, because some of those suits had merit, right? Like the Stephanopoulos suit, I think had merit, right?
That was when Trump was a private citizen, though. I mean, I agree that that one did have much more straightforward merit, because that was Stephanopoulos making a statement of fact about Trump having been convicted of rape or something like that, right? And and that was a straightforward misrepresentation that would be rightly seen as defamatory. But Trump wasn't president at the time of that.
No, he wasn't, but it would still be messed up if they did it now. That's the thing. Like, I guess my I probably have to sit down and think this through a little bit better, but I'm responding kind of like in the heat of the moment to something that's been bothering me for a long time, and not just about Trump or Patel, but just it's this general thing where we know we can get away with with some stuff at the edges now. So let's push the envelope a little bit. And yeah, absolutely, he's it's an overboard response. But I don't see that as what's ended up happening now is that people are describing lawsuits as inherently like speech chilling, and I don't think that that's the case necessarily. But
no, not inherently. But I do think we're in a little bit of a different place when we're talking about the president or the FBI director filing a lawsuit where it could be seen. I mean, there's more speech chilling potential there, at the very least, than with some run-of-the-mill defamation lawsuit.
Yeah, he's not going to win though. So,
but he doesn't have to. I mean, that's what Fire is saying, though. He doesn't have to win. Like, the lawsuit is the point. The punishment is the punishment conferred by the lawsuit is the point, and that's what does the chilling.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it probably will chill much. I don't think news organizations are going to be that.
But that's
dissuaded from covering.
That's kind of my point. Like, if you go back and look at Atlantic's got a whole bunch of stories in the last 10 years or so that are like where like the Bountygate story, or the story about Trump at the graveyard in France, right?
And the Wall Street Journal lawsuits obviously did not dissuade the media from continuing to cover Trump's relationship or not with Epstein.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Because that lawsuit in particular was just so ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's a conundrum. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about all of this stuff. But
I mean, look, if there was something that was just straight, like if there was something that was more like the Stephanopoulos thing, then I'd at least be willing to entertain it. I would still maybe have some reservations if we're talking about some of the most powerful public officials in the country, but I'd be more willing to entertain the justifiability of bringing a suit like that. But to me, the Wall Street Journal one with Trump was just like almost in your face farcical in terms of the merits. And this one be a little bit more ambiguous, but I read it and saw that as pretty straightforwardly meritless too. So you have to wonder, okay, so what's the purpose of this if there's no plausible expectation that could actually get a favorable judgment from a court? Okay, yeah. Well, the purpose of it has to be something. I mean, what would be the purpose then? If the purpose would be to mete out some kind of punishment, however ineffectually, using the implied authority of the office that they hold.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, no, that's probably true. I have to come up with some more.
It's a complex question that we don't necessarily have to have all the answers right on the fly here.
Yeah, I mean, it's this thing that I'm reacting to something that's kind of been in the ether about how, we can publish a bunch of stuff with anonymous sources, and because according to the letter of the law, we've dotted our I's. It's going to be okay. With public figures, it's just gotten to a place. I guess that's always been true, though. I mean, it's just more. It's been more exacerbated in terms of politicians in recent years. So, yeah. Anyway,
I'm sure Bill Clinton would have loved to sue somebody during Whitewater,
exactly.
and stuff was getting leaked constantly about Ken Starr,
and Hillary Clinton killing Vince Foster and all that shit, right? But yeah. Anyway, interesting case. The prediction, the larger story here is that there's a widespread expectation that he's, or the Atlantic is predicting that he's going to be ousted soon, which will that would be interesting if that turns out to be the case.
Possible.
So,
I mean, the labor secretary was just ousted today. Not that anybody was following her
really
tenure
I didn't
that
even
closely.
See that.
Yeah, Lori Chavez DeRemer, I think that's her name.
I heard from somebody right after the hockey video leaked that he was done. So maybe
that was a while ago now.
Yeah. No,
so
I know.
I guess that wasn't right.
Yeah, I guess that wasn't. All right.
Which is probably why he's doing these very showboaty media appearances, almost like he's like mimicking Trump.
Right. Right.
It's a career-saving move. I mean, does this strike you as that crazy that when he got locked out somehow of his computer system, he might have been a little freaked and think that maybe this is it. Maybe I did finally get the boot. I don't know. It seems like it doesn't strike me like straightforwardly so out of the realm of plausibility.
Oh, I don't think it's implausible. I'm thinking in terms of what's going through the minds of the editors.
Maybe this woman at the Atlantic has a real source. I mean, that's a possibility too.
Yeah, it's possible. It is possible. I don't know. I'm getting crotchety in my old age. Like there's all right.
I'm plenty crotchety too, but I'm trying to.
When you get to be my age, wait till you see how crotchety you'll get.
More crotchety about like my body aches and things.
Oh yeah, well that's a lot of fun. All right.
Do you have like old like basketball injuries and stuff that you're constantly?
Yeah,
spreading over.
I've got the old sports injuries that come and play all the time now, so those are great. Plus, I have shitty eating habits, and I don't really care about pursuing them anymore. Yeah, totally.
Well, you maintain your figure very well. So congratulations.
Well, thank you, Michael. That's very nice.
Take your shirt off right now.
All right. What do we expect that's going to happen later in this week for us to talk about?
Let's see. Well, I mean, we didn't even mention Iran, but
oh, that's right. God,
there's yet another like ultimatum deadline coming up supposedly on. I think it's tomorrow evening because like it's going to be 2 weeks tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. roughly that Trump declared the 2-week ceasefire.
Yeah,
and he seems like he's actually who knows, but there's been a lot of escalatory movement.
Yeah, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Mr. Nice Guy, but it's not just the rhetoric. Like he ordered the Navy to fire upon an Iranian vessel in the Strait of Hormuz and then seize the ship. And it's still like unclear what's exactly happening with these potential negotiations that are like being talked about taking place tomorrow in Islamabad. Like JD Vance was going to go, but then Trump says he's not going because of security reasons, but then he is going. Who knows what's even happening with that? It's otherwise going to be Witkoff and Kushner, which is like the kiss of death for Iran, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because they'll negotiate something and Trump will nix it, And
But I wrote something yesterday like Trump is not bluffing because as much as people want to kind of like dismiss the rhetorical excesses as just like art of the deal bluster, if you go through and look at the record, like the stuff that Trump has threatened that he's going to do, by and large with Iran, he has ended up doing it. Like I remember people dismissing as bluster when he threatened to assassinate the supreme leader back in June of 2025, and then he did it. Or in March of 2025, he says, look, if they don't capitulate to our 60-day ultimatum where like the negotiated outcome has got to be just basically surrender, then there will be bombing. And then there was the promised bombing right when the 60-day window expired. So it seems like, we're kind of coming maybe to a head here where the threat to blow up all of Iran's power plants and bridges could be happening. And you had Mike Waltz, the UN ambassador, on all the Sunday shows yesterday, preemptively kind of volunteering a justification for Trump doing this, meaning saying, oh, look, we do this in World War II. This is how like America wins wars and is like unapologetic about it. So I don't know, it could come to a head, but we went like 2 hours without mentioning that. But yeah, we could be on the verge of something like apocalyptic within the next like 48 hours.
Yeah, we'll get to Iran or what's left of it, but at the end of the week. One quick thing in exiting, let's look at SOD 18. This is Erica Kirk her entrance at a Turning Point USA thing last Friday. I got a question for you, Michael, and then I have my own comparison about this. SOD 18. Here we go.
Please welcome Turning Point USA CEO and Chair Erica Kirk.
All right.
That's exactly what happens whenever I enter a room.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there a wrestler who uses that song or as an entrance?
Not that I know of. Not from like the WWF Attitude Era. Not one that I would be instantly familiar with. But it is kind of like a WWE.
I thought Triple H maybe, but no. It turns out not.
I would know the Triple H entrance music.
Okay, all right. Well, here's what it did remind me of. Can we watch?
Triple H he had several entrance versions of that entrance music. But it's time to play the game.
Oh no. Let's not watch that one. Let's watch the one from.
Oh yeah, that's Triple H. That's exactly what I was just singing.
Yeah, let's watch it quick.
So that's more of a rock thing.
Yeah, the other one was Beat Smash, right?
Yeah, or it was like I don't know, Skill Rex or something.
All right, that's pretty good.
All of this stems from in the 2016 Republican convention when on one of the nights Trump does a WWE entrance essentially, where like it's like he's walking out of the tunnel in the classic WWE setup.
Oh, he totally does.
He said Vince McMahon advised him on it.
Right. Yeah. No, they totally do the WWE thing, and now that's become like a standard.
With the Erica Kirk thing, okay, look, I obviously I don't co-sign any of the Candace insanity obsession around her, but there is like it's almost like she goes out of her way to just come across as odd in how she carries herself. And look, so on the one hand, she's a grieving widow who nobody, it would be horrible manners to ever criticize or even look askance at. On the other hand, she's this like aspiring Republican Party kingmaker who is running what we're told is like the most politically influential organization in the country, Turning Point USA. She already endorsed Vance, months ago for president in 2028. She had this event with Vance that she was supposed to be attending. last week at the University of Georgia, and then canceled at the last minute on like kind of trumped up grounds that didn't really make any sense, for like, undefined security threats, meaning like, I don't know, there's people like blabbing on social media or something. But then like the security threat went away and she could easily get to the Trump event where she made that entrance. So it's almost like she's inviting some of this crazy speculation. I'm not accusing her of being complicit in the assassination or anything. I'm not in the, I don't even follow whatever Candace kind of blurts out about this stuff.
By the way, we have to do a whole show on Trump's insults about all these like people like Candace Owens at some point. But all right, here's what it reminded this.
He had a funny one. He in this Truth Social, he said he referred to her as Candace in just random quotation marks. It didn't even make sense, but that's why it was so good.
All right, here we go. Last thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of America! President Camacho! Shut up!
All right, just the point is like art imitates life more and more, or life imitates art more and more. And I don't know. I thought that shit was funny. The art thing. All right. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Michael, thanks for taking so much time. And we will see you later in the week. And we'll pay attention to the thing that's actually happening, like in Iran, next time.
Yeah, we'll be live from the Strait of Hormuz.
Live from the Strait of Hormuz.
Live from the Strait of Hormuz. It's the private pedo party. And we can get like a bunch of pedos in like head dresses and things.
Oh, we need a pedo. What's the name of the pedophile band?
We can be shirtless on those camels. You know how Swalwell and Ruben Gallego got in trouble for that old photo of them riding camels shirtless? We got to do that.
Oh yes, absolutely. The shirtless camel riders. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good night. And Michael, thank you too. Thank you, Mr. Producer, and we will talk to you again soon.
See you next time.